everybody, it's me, Laura, and today I'm back with another Madness Makeover. Yes, number 17, and I haven't done a Madness in a little while, so I thought we got to do this, right? So anyways, I have a couple of pendants I picked up at my local store. I'm not going to say what store. Y'all be like, what? It's like, but these were discounted at my store, and I thought, why not go ahead and alter them? Now, at first, the black piece in this thing I thought was actually made of metal or something else, but it's actually plastic. I didn't realize that. I'm also bringing in my bullseye cane here of my magenta, blue, and yellow, and I thought I'd go ahead and, reduce it down a little bit to the size that I like, pinch a point, and that way then I could create a little bit of a petal look. Now, once I got the petals made, I'm going to go ahead and place them on the top of this pendant in the black area and do it in just a designative, or I should say almost like a floral kind of way, like you'd see only part of a flower, and it would be going off the side of the pendant piece. Once I have that down, I'm also going to be bringing in some mud clay and playing with it in this design. I want to try a few little different things if I could and see what I could do with these pendants that needed to be altered. Now, if you're wondering about the bullseye, like how to make the bullseye cane, and you're new to polymer clay, I will have in my description area a link to either one or two maybe other videos I have done in the past on the bullseye cane, and this way then you got a general sense of how to create a bullseye cane. And here's the thing, you don't have to do it in yellow, blue, and magenta like I did here, but you could do it in just blue and yellow or magenta and blue or whatever. But create a bullseye that you really like. If you want to add white in or more black, make more distinction. If you want to put a checker around it, you can do that too. So don't leave it where it's just like, I'm doing it this way, right? Have somewhat fun with it. Create your own style. But as you can see here also, I brought in some of my black clay. I created a couple of little tiny teardrops, and I'm going to place them right at the very, kind of overlapping those petal pieces that I have already laid down. I'm bringing in then my knitting needle, and I'm going to make a nice little indent into them, and I'm going to do that all the way around, again following my little bullseye cane petals that I've already put down. Once I have all of these little tiny black teardrops put down and just overlapping my petal pieces here, I bring in my blade and I cut this thing flush with the actual, kind of the frame of this thing. I don't want it to run off the side. I thought, no, I don't want to do that. I want to make sure this is all cut off really nice. Now you could tell that my bezel here, because it's got that twist kind of look to it, I have to take my knitting, or I should say my needle tool. You could use a knitting needle tool, but I mean, and just push it back in against the piece itself. Once I had that, I brought in another piece of that petal cane, and I thought, let's place it right down along the edge. I wanted to just tie it off, and I wanted to give it just a little bit more color too. The thing is here, the idea for me in creating this piece was I wanted to use a little bit of my painting technique along with my caning technique and just see how this would look on a Madness Makeover type segment. So anyway, again, bringing in a ball of clay, creating eventually a little teardrop there. I'll place that down just off on the one side there, bring in my burnisher tool, and you can use a knitting needle if you wish, and create a nice little indented area where I can then bring in another couple of smaller balls, place that inside that, use my knitting needle, make an indent like right there, and then another little ball, and do the same thing. Once I have that taken care of, I'm going to create another little teardrop, and I'll put that at the top of this piece, and then I'll bake the entire thing for 275 degrees for about 7 to 10 minutes. Notice here that I'm lifting that clay off, and I'm taking that off because, as you can tell, it was plastic and it kind of shrunk up in the oven. So I'm like going, well, that's not going to do, right? So I took that out, and then I come in, instead of that piece, I'm figuring, okay, I've got the clay pieces that I had already created. We'll bring in some fresh black clay, and I'll fill in the bezeled area on the gold here, and that way then I'll have a nice solid clay background to build off of. I can then, once I have this thing conformed, to that gold frame, bring in my liquid clay and attach in the piece that has already been baked into the pendant itself. So that whole piece that I had done up, I took some of my liquid clay and I thought just push that down gently into the pendant piece, and then we'll do the same thing with the little ball set thing I had done on the other side. So I had that, pushed it down just gently. This way then when I go to rebake, it'll attach in beautifully without any problems whatsoever. Again, I'm doing that with that little ball piece too. And when I cut that ball piece off from the pendant, I didn't really conform it to the frame. I thought I'm going to let this piece kind of go off the edge. Let yourself have that advantage. If you want something to go around a bezeled area, let it do it. It's so much more interesting to look at when you can, how do I say this? Think outside the box. One of those things I just absolutely love doing. Anyways, I'm bringing in some more fresh black clay here, and this has been rolled out on a number 4 or a 5 setting. I think 4 would be probably thin enough, but if you want it thinner, go ahead and do so. And I'm just creating some nice little black strips. We're going to kind of curl them up and place them into our pendant piece, finishing it up really nicely. In taking this pendant and reworking it, I decided to also work on the chain. It was a really interesting chain that it was attached in. It had these like metal solid areas in the chain itself, and I thought we could do something fun with this. So I have some black clay here that was rolled out on a number 4 or 5 setting. You know, you try to go as thin as you can without going too thin, right? And I started cutting really some long triangle pieces, and then I'll take each of these pieces and I'll roll them up around onto these little solid pieces in the chain. Now you're probably wondering why I have that clay down there. When I was taking this thing apart, the pendant would not naturally slip on there, and especially with clay on it, it was not going to naturally slip into place where I wanted it. So what I had to do is find out where dead center was in this chain and then leave that there as my marker, if you will, to figure out, okay, where do I need to place it? But as you can tell here, I'm just kind of twisting up a little bit of that black clay around on just a few of these little gold pieces. But maybe this will give you an idea of like, oh, I've got some metal, maybe bugle beads, okay? Use some bugle beads and change it up using a little bit of polymer clay. At this point, the pendant piece has been completely baked through and I'm just taking it off the back. Now I've got a little bit of the back where it just kind of came through. I'm just going to scrape that off. It's not a big deal. It's just a little bit extra clay that wanted to seep and kind of, get squirrely. Get squirrely on me on the back, right? So I'm just going to take that off. It's going to be nice and clean with my blade. And then I'm going to pop this pendant right out of the bezel. I'll come in with my super glue and I'll glue this thing back into place because it's going to naturally fall out if I don't get it glued down. Now, if you want to use a little bit of E6000, that I recommend also in using because you're not going to place this thing back in the oven, so it should adhere just fine. It'll be solid as a rock. You won't have to worry about that thing going anywhere. Anyway, once I get this thing completely glued in, I'm going to come in with my paints, my Deco Art Metallic of my Amethyst, and then I'll bring in my Folkart paints of my Metallic Golden Touch and my Colorshift paint of my Red Flash. Now, once I get this thing completely painted up, I'm going to then come in with my pointed back rhinestones. I'll place those into the little areas that I like the most, and then I'll bring in that, you might say, the jump ring or the very decorative jump ring that I found this bezel with, and the chain, and I'll place it and put it all together. So from here, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to let you guys just watch my hands talk as I finish up this first pendant piece. All right, so now we're going to start working on that second pendant piece, and right away I'm popping this thing out. It's a piece of plastic. Yes, let's not put that in the oven. Who knew, right? It's like, yeah, sometimes I just can't tell. So I've struggled getting this thing out, but I finally did get it with my needle tool, and I finally figured out why not just push it on the back side. Hello, it came right out. So once I did that, I then decided, okay, we need to detach the chain and that little decorative jump ring. And when you do this sort of thing, when you try to take it apart, do it gently because there's only one of these. Unless you want to change out your jump ring to something else, then it doesn't matter. But anyways, I filled in with my black clay on the new bezel, and then I'm bringing in this leaf pattern that I have in my stencils, and I will leave the link to this particular stencil, so if you need to find it, you can go ahead and look in my description area and it should be there. I'm then bringing in some fairly heavy body white acrylic paint by Liquitex, and I thought, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Now, when I did it the first time, I pushed too hard. Don't do that. Here's the thing, I had to come back and redo it again. But how did I get the paint off? Well, I had to go over to the sink and I washed the paint right off of the bezel with the clay in it. And yes, it's fresh clay, but the water's not going to do anything to it. No problem. Let my stencil dry and then went back over it again. And this time I went a little bit more gentle. I didn't push down quite so bad. And as I was doing this, I thought, okay, let's start to lift it up. When I did, I lifted it up slightly to see how it was doing. Well, okay, I thought, add a little more, right? And this way then I could figure out, okay, if I need a little more here, a little more there. That way then I knew most of the stenciled area would come off really nicely. Then I brought in my Keoker autumn cutters, and yes, I really liked that one maple leaf and I think that little oak leaf, and I thought, let's go ahead and use those. Well, in the end, it came down to the maple. That was my favorite. I was like going, yes, I just like the look of it, and it went really well with the pattern I had already placed down. I'm bringing in also a Skinner blend of yellow to red, and I'm going to cut just a couple of these little leaves out and place them into our pendant piece. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm also trying to design it. So I'm thinking, okay, we'll place two of the leaves at the top, and I'm also going to bring in a little bit of this black clay that has been rolled out on a number 4 setting on my Atlas pasta machine, and we're going to lay a strip of that down towards the bottom where I'll have just one of these maple leaves around it. So I wanted to kind of create a little bit of a three-dimensional piece to it, and that's how I'm doing this. With each of the leaves, I also made an indent with my needle tool, and then I'm bringing in, as you can see, that black strip. I'm laying it right across the bottom there, and then placing the one leaf right over the top of it, just gently conforming it to it, and then that strip, you just kind of cut off the ends so it conforms to the bezel itself. That third leaf, I thought about it, I thought maybe at the bottom, no, it had to be towards the top because I really liked my stencil area and I wanted to keep as much as possible. In the process of it though, I had to cut off most of that one maple leaf, and as you can tell, even the one at the bottom, but that's okay, we just need a hint of it. So you're conforming everything to the bezel, and it worked out beautifully because I went in, I thought, oh, it's just giving a hint of that extra color that I have right on top of the stenciled piece. I absolutely loved it. It was so much fun for me. And in doing so, I looked at that and I had the one line there. I thought, let's go ahead and lead a line up into the leaf area. This way then it gives more of a notion that this was a leaf, even though it got cut off by, conforming to the bezel itself. That's what I did also with the other pieces, just a nice little line to kind of give it an idea of the veins in the leaf piece. Once I have those veins all figured out, I then take my blade and I just conform it a little bit nicely to that bezel. And then I'm bringing in another strip of black, and I want to just kind of create almost like a little belt loop right over the other piece I have placed into this bezel. and I decided to do two of those. And then I brought in another, you might say just a long strip to place in there on one side of that particular, strap, if you will, going across it, and then also having it go on the other side as well, except on the other side, I had it overlap the one leaf area. And I thought that looks really kind of cool. It's kind of fun because just a little more three-dimensional, which I love. I just love that. And then brought in my knitting needle, did a couple of little indents into this piece. And once I get this whole thing together, I'll bake it then at 275 degrees for about 7 to 10 minutes. Check where you live though, because you might have to change that up. Again, I also had on this chain that I got with these pendants, I thought, let's go ahead and do a little bit more on this. Instead of doing a little twist all the way around the little solid gold bead-like thing, if you will, I decided just to make one little, take one little section and then just pull off the end, and there you have a little bit of a black thing right over the center area. And I did that with a couple of these beads, making sure that I had equal on both sides, so I knew exactly where my pendant would eventually become attached in later. Once again, once both the chain and the pendant piece have been totally baked all the way through, I'm going to come in a little bit later and I'm going to use my Deco Art metallic paint of my berry, and then I'll use my Folkart Colorshift paints of my pastel purple and my emerald flash to complete up the entire thing. So from here, I'm just going to go ahead, I'll let you guys watch my hands talk as I finish up my second pendant piece and completing up my Madness Makeover number 17. All right, so this is the end results of creating my Madness Makeover number 17. Please use this for study and reference. And if you like this video, please like, bop the like button, and subscribe, and leave me a comment. I'm always wondering what you're thinking. Otherwise, I am sending out my biggest hugs to each of you, and I hope you have a fantastic day.